Everybody, yet another episode of TheDoubleZTV where you guys all know by now. Here on my show, I'm the champ. Deal the bitches. So, we got a special little custom video version of a review this time. This one being a forgotten show, the WWE vs. ECW head-to-head show. All the way back from June 7, 2006, live from Dayton, Ohio. How the show go? Let's find out. So right off the bat, let's get this clear out of the way. Raw and SmackDown had to put their differences aside because it's all WWE versus ECW, and that's shown because Mick Foley starts out the show giving a big pep talk to the Raw and SmackDown superstars, while Paul Heyman is hyping up everybody over in ECW, including their newest active member, Kurt frickin' Angle. It's just a bad shame that Kurt Angle did not last that long in ECW to begin with, because he'd be gone just a short time later. Now, the cool thing that they did during this whole thing is when they were setting off the pyro, they actually had two different sets side by side to show that, hey, they're not equals, they're not going to enter out the same entrance to the ring, so we're going to keep that split off right there. Representing the WWE would be good old JR and Jerry Lawler, the famous duo that we all remember during the Attitude Era. And representing ECW, you have Joey Styles and Taz. Taz and Jerry Lawler are going through a lot of verbal exchanges throughout this whole show to prepare for their big match. Well, somewhat big match, at ECW One Night Stand that following Sunday. Now, we get a handful of matches already advertised for the night, including the WWE vs. ECW Supremacy Battle Royal. We remember that Edge is going to face Tommy Dreamer and later on in an Extreme Rules match, and the main event being John Cena vs. Sabu in an Extreme Rules match. Remember that last one, because that one's going to be tricky at the end for what really an Extreme Rules match is supposed to be. Alright, first contest of the night. The World Heavyweight Champion Rey Mysterio versus Mr. Money in the Bank, Rob Vanam. And right away, you see a bit of cruiserweight action right off the start. And it doesn't really last that long. Crowd gives a slight applause to them. Both men are taking the action to the outside, including Rey getting dropped onto the barricade after getting caught with a baseball slide dropkick. Rob loses his balance on the barricade, trying to go for the leg drop. When he regains his balance and hits it again, Rey gets out of the way, only for Rey to going for a big dive over the barricade into Rob Vanam as they go to commercial. Crazy freaking spot. That's definitely giving an ECW feel right there. Now, we gotta remember this. This was not advertised as a no disqualification time match, and yet when Rob Vanam brought in the chair, there was no real disqualification called, even though they tried to say, oh, maybe the referee's being lenient, which is kind of weird because the referee was Charles Robinson, and you don't really see a SmackDown referee really be more lenient in the rules for an ECW guy, but still out in the chair, took in place during part of the match, including where Rey attacked Rob Vanam with a big avalanche bulldog. Eventually, RVD capitalizes, tries to go for Frog Splash onto Rey, who throws the chair out of the way, still eats the Frog Splash, and Mr. RVD wins the match. Overall, pretty good start to the show. Like I said, kind of odd that they allowed the steel chair in there without a DQ call there, despite the fact that it wasn't announced as a no disqualification match, but it was still pretty good nonetheless. Even though it was also kind of weird that Rey would throw away the chair, it's like you could have also gotten out of the way, possibly, but it's whatever. And afterwards, both men slapping hands to show respect, remembering that these two are former tag team champions, so there's no bad blood there. Now, we gotta remember, this show took place 2 days after Raw, so they reminded us 2 days prior Randy Orton came back from a suspension, or they tried to stay on TV, oh, he got his ankle broken by Kurt Angle, which was just a big old cover-up. Kurt Angle comes down to the ring to cut a promo on Randy Orton, announcing that our match coming up at One Night Stand, and saying that he's not the Olympic gold medalist, he is not WWE's Kurt Angle, he is now ECW's new Kurt frickin' Angle. And before he can try to finish off his promo, out comes Randy Orton. Now, Randy really takes shots at Kurt Angle and ECW, saying that there's a big comparison between both companies, saying that Kurt Angle's gone from main eventing WrestleMania all the way down to being in ECW, pretty much the equivalent of starring in a summer blockbuster, then going to hardcore porn. So after a little bit more of a verbal exchange, Kurt Angle's vowing to break Randy Orton's arms, legs, and his neck before Orton yells at him, calling a smug son of a bitch. And after 2 months of pent-up frustration, and also reminding the folks that now he's on Raw after his SmackDown contract expired, he vowed he's going to kill the legend of Kurt Angle, and most importantly, of ECW. Now, match number 2, it's kind of a short match. This saw Mickie James, the then WWE Women's Champion, against the temporarily returning, Jazz. This being her first match in about 2 to 2.5 years, if memory serves me right. Not much of a match here. Jazz tries to get a bunch of offense, including a few roundhouse kicks. They brawl the outside. Eventually, Jazz gets back in the ring and hits what people would remember as the X Factor that set out Facebuster, but Jazz called it the Jazz Stinger. But Mickie ends up getting her foot on the bottom rope to break up the pin. and then gets poke of the eye to Jazz in a long-awaited Mickey DT for the victory. And by long, I mean it took forever to deliver that move, and yet Jazz did not counter at all. The match, don't freaking care, just throw away, whatever. Now backstage, you see Todd Grisham interviewing John Cena. This, I think, is one of John Cena's more forgotten promos, as he's talking about the whole show coming up for One Night Stand 2006, saying that if John Cena loses the title, it's going to be rechristened the ECW Championship, and he says it's the same title held by the likes of Bruno Sammartino and Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that's really a pointless way to freaking name drop just to try to get a good reaction out of the crowd. And he even realizes ahead of time, hey, this crowd at One Night Stand is not WWE fans, it's ECW, and they're going to eat them alive. And then he focuses attention at the end of the promo onto Sabu, saying, "You mess with the wrong fire-breathing son of a bitch." Nice one. So then right afterwards, Lillian announces Paul Heyman down to the ring as the ECW representative as he starts hyping up One Night Stand and shows a few matches as advertised for the pay-per-view. Matches like Jerry Lawler versus Taz, you see Sabu and Rey Mysterio, John Cena and Rob Vanam, Kurt Angle, Randy Orton, and the tag team match of Edge and Mick Foley against Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer for the event. Some match card graphics I don't think we saw outside of the show. Maybe we also saw them on SmackDown, I can't really recall. And then, of course, also through that, you get the whole plug saying, hey, next Tuesday, ECW's on Sci-Fi, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. Saying this is the rebirth of ECW, but the resurgence and rebirth is going to happen at One Night Stand. And then we also get a bit of a video replay showcasing what happened the previous year at One Night Stand 2005, which was a nice little touch. Now comes one of the promos that you look back in retrospect and you realize how ironic it is. Kurt Angle is hyping up the ECW locker room while Big Show is hyping up the WWE locker room, and Big Show is saying, hey, it's ironic that Kurt Angle betrayed the WWE for ECW. It's ironic as we see in the Battle Royal, and then says ECW by the end will not know what hit him. What could he mean by that? So now match number 3, a 20-man WWE versus ECW Brand Supremacy Battle Royal. Raw and SmackDown against ECW, Raw having The Big Show, Randy Orton, Edge, Carlito, and Shelton Benjamin, while SmackDown has Matt Hardy, Bobby Lashley, Tatanka, Mark Henry, and Finlay. Then ECW side has Kurt Angle, Terry Funk, Tommy Dreamer, Stevie Richards, Balls Mahoney, Sandman, Al Snow, Little Guido, Justin Credible, and Tony Mamaluke, who I couldn't really tell was in the match, and then after doing a quick bit of research before doing the video, Tony Mamaluke just recently retired within by February of this year, so that's kind of surprising there. Now, some things that we saw here, we saw Mark Henry get eliminated pretty early, which is kind of sad, especially this was right before his injury. You saw names get suddenly thrown out like Matt Hardy, Little Guido, who is wearing his Nunzio trunks, so kind of odd. You're wearing an ECW shirt, yet you're still wearing the trunks of your WWE name. No. Eventually, Tatanka also got eliminated, followed by Carlito. Edge, who was still on the outside this whole time, also threw Tony Mamaluke right on the outside. And then Edge and Randy Orton also double-teamed Tommy Dreamer to get him out of the ring before the break. Then afterwards, Edge and Finlay team up to get rid of Terry Funk. Justin Credible goes out. Al Snow tries to give head to Shelton Benjamin, but Al misses and then eats a roundhouse kick right to the outside. So that was a nice little touch there. And eventually Big Show is like, here, you want head? Drops him to Al. By the end of it, eventually Finlay is taken out of the ring. Edge jumps into the ring to try to spear Kurt Angle, but Randy immediately sneaks up, dumps Kurt Angle right to the outside, and the bell rings, and it seems, oh, Raw wins, and Lillian's trying to make the announcement, but then...
Of the Battle Royal! What the hell? What the hell?
Ay, you can't trust Big Show, can ya? So because of this, it's announced that Big Show has defected over to ECW, dumps Randy Orton out of the ring, and ECW officially wins the Brand Supremacy Battle Royal. And then, of course, the ECW locker room decides to celebrate after the break with a big beer toast and chanting ECW, ECW, with their new addition, Big Show. Next up, the big fourth match, Edge versus Tommy Dreamer in an Extreme Rules match. There is one botch I will get into that you might have remembered from a Botchamania episode, but we'll see when the footage comes along. Now, right before the match comes up, you get the announcement that Edge is being reminded as a co-holder of the Hardcore Championship, and he also has Mick Foley and Lita with him out at ringside, when they also replay a bit of footage from Mick Foley making a big promo back in 1995 in ECW, denouncing the company for how sick and twisted it really is. So right off the start, you see Edge and Tommy Dreamer square off. Tommy Dreamer with the barbed wire 2x4, Edge with the chair, and they try doing that whole clash of weapons. For some reason, Edge easily loses his steel chair. I mean, between the two, shouldn't the steel chair win due to weight and the power there? Eventually, Tommy Dreamer is still getting a bunch of weapon shots on Edge thanks to Lita's interference. Edge gets his momentum a little bit, getting a few weapon shots on Dreamer. Dreamer sets up a chair, and then Edge ends up hitting a drop toe hold on a Tommy Dreamer, landing headfirst right into the top of the chair. Nasty, and eventually Edge capitalizes with a sick execution into the trash can for a near fall. They try that whole spot where Edge thinks that somebody's going to charge up from behind him when he's running to the corner, so he tries to springboard over, like a whole up and over maneuver. But Tommy Dreamer catches him right in mid-move by kicking him in the balls. Tree of Woe, and then Tommy is standing there right on his balls. Oh, torture right there. Dreamer soon gets that whole running baseball slide drop kick into the corner with Edge having the steel chair in his face. Eventually the table is set up and it looks like Dreamer is going to go for a superplex, but Lita's stopping it. Funk goes after Lita, and then Mick Foley comes up from behind, choking out Terry Funk with the barbed wire around his neck. Soon Edge tries to go for a big super power bomb to Tommy Dreamer, but Dreamer counters it with a back body drop, and the landing is just horrendous.
Oh, damn, Edge! Edge head first. Edge missed the table.
Yeah, by that landing, Edge just about landed on his head, and only his leg hit the table, and then Dreamer tries to recover by hitting the Death Valley driver to Edge through the table, goes for the cover, Lita breaks it up with Singapore Cane, and then Tommy's like, oh, I've had enough of you, you rat-headed slut. So Dreamer picks up Lita going for a powerbomb, Edge hits him with a spear, and then both of them on top of Dreamer for the pin, and Edge gets the victory over Tommy Dreamer. Pretty damn good match, probably the best match of the whole show, and that's not really saying a whole lot, but still an extreme match. Foley and Funk are still battling afterwards, so pretty damn good if I have to say so myself. So after the break, Mick Foley's sitting alone in the ring with a spotlight on him, talking about ECW, saying that he loved ECW, but he didn't love what it did to him, eventually calling it that sick, twisted horror that he wants to get out of his life, and still hyping up more of the tag team match coming up at One Night Stand. And you gotta give a lot of credit to Foley because he knows how to add a lot of emotion into his promo, so bravo on this one, Mick. So, you remember those verbal quarrels I mentioned at the beginning between Lawler and Taz? Well, it came to head right before the main event as Lawler and Taz squared off, just punching each other and then brawling over the announce table. Now the main event, John Cena, the WWE Champion, versus the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal, death-defying Sabu in an Extreme Rules match. I mentioned at the beginning, remember how the Extreme Rules stipulation is kind of odd for this match? Well, you're about to find out. Both men tried their best to get as much offense as they could. John Cena was dominating early on in the match with constant haymakers. Sabu eventually gets his momentum back as soon as he hits a low blow on Cena and a somersault plunge to the outside, a few chair shots, and even hitting an air Sabu, which was an awesome moment there. You also saw a triple jump moonsault and an Arabian facebuster to Cena. Cena was even draped over the announce table, but they couldn't break it, with Sabu trying the leg drop in there and then also onto the floor as well. So eventually, Sabu tries to go for a second air Sabu. Cena catches him, gets him with the AA, and then locks in the STFU, and then out comes the Big Show. Attacks John Cena, and is rendered a DQ finish. You can't call for a DQ finish in a match with no disqualification. And yet they did that anyway, and then out came the big brawl. All the guys that appeared earlier as WWE brand against all the guys from ECW, just a big brawl to close off the show. So, was this show worth it to get everybody hyped up for a One Night Stand? And is it worth checking on the WWE Network? If you like remembering stuff about ECW, the more good stuff, rather than what happened after the brand was relaunched, I'd recommend it. If you want to check it out, go to the Vault section of the WWE Network, go to WWE ECW, check the year 2006, and scroll all the way to the bottom. It'll be the one show that airs before the first episode of ECW. Fun show to go back and relive. Even though the women's match was very disappointing, and then Big Show turning again, it's like, what else is new at this point? I mean, Big Show does more turning than a doorknob. So, let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below, and like I said, if you want to revisit it, check out the WWE Network. This show, like I said, not bad. Good way to get everybody hyped up for One Night Stand, especially with all the brawls and everything. But that match, main event finish, just really kind of threw it off. But let me know what you guys saw in the comment section below, and I shall see y'all later. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe. See ya. Champ has spoken, bitches.